Hey guys, and welcome to the first in a series of videos on the Zumi. You probably know a little bit about the Zumi, otherwise I don't think you'd have opened this video. If you know nothing, that's fine, you're in the right place to find out. So I've had a Zumi sent to me by a company called AtLab. They operate here in the GCC region, basically as a supply chain for everything that interests us here at Maker Learners. So I'm sure I'll be in contact with these guys quite a bit. If I take out the Zumi, they've given me my very own to play with. So a Zumi is this thing here. Now, for those of you that have been watching the channel for a while, or those of you that might know me, the things that excite me are machine learning, Python programming and robotics, and the Zumi really encapsulates all three of these things quite nicely. You can see from the picture on the front, it's a small robotic car, which we do program with the Python programming language, and we do train it through machine learning. So the idea is it's a lot like the Amazon's AWS Deep Racer, but I think far more younger student friendly. Now I say younger students, I would probably not use this with students younger than, I'd say 11. I think as soon as you're in middle school, you're probably okay to use it. But then you can use it, I think, to much greater effect up over in high school. So once you get to the kind of 15, 16 years of age, I'm sure you can do some very great things with it. We're going to be trying to do those things in these videos. Starting off with an unboxing, so let's take the Zumi over to the GoPro and we'll have a look at what's inside the box. Okay, so the first thing that I noticed with the Zumi was just how well packaged it was, which is always nice to see that some thought and care has gone into this. In particular, oh look at that, I hadn't actually, I think I just commented on the age. One thing in particular, I like the use of the magnetic strip that just kind of causes the box to fall apart, and you get this really nice kind of inner instruction guide that runs along the packaging. Another thing that I really like, and it's going to be easier to show you if I just quickly seal this thing back up again, is that the, oh, and actually I can see that this is the wrong way around. Let me just flip this and then I'll show you. If I turn this and you just look here, you can see that there are 3 layers to this box, and the parts are kept within each part of the stack. And the really nice thing is that, and I'll show you in a second, once you're actually done building the Zumi, this entire box actually breaks down to something substantially smaller for you to use in class with your students. So they've really put a lot of thought into this design. So if we just reopen the box up again, the very first layer contains an envelope, which we'll get into in a second, and the shell of the car. So this will protect all of those lovely components. I believe it pops open just like this. I'm guessing that's so that we can access, actually I'm not sure what that's to access. We'll find out when we build it. So we've got the shell, we've got 2 wheels, you can see, and everything does feel really secure. So I think this box could have taken a bit of a beating, and it would be just fine. We've got 2 motors. Now they do look, because the shape, they remind me of the servo motors that I use with the Arduino. They're not, and you can see they're not because we've only got 2 wires that run into them. So we've got the positive and negative, the grounding wire. There's nothing for a signal. So we've got two motors. And then if I go, oh, the envelope. So if we have a quick look at the envelope, that contains the instruction manual, which I'll be reading off camera before the actual build. And some colour cards for the machine learning training, and I think that's about it. A little yellow post-it, I think. And we've got the color cards for training the machine learning model to recognize color. Okay, so that's the first layer. And then if I pop that off, in the second layer, what do we have? We've got the lithium polymer battery for the Zumi. That'll be rechargeable, of course. We've got the actual chassis for the car. So that's what we're going to build everything atop of. And we've got, what is this? This is described as a mounting bracket. So I'm guessing that raises one of the components up off the chassis. I'm not sure what yet. Maybe it's the little LCD screen. Who knows? We'll find out. We've also got the main board, and you can see the board is littered with what look like LEDs. A lot of these actually aren't. They are IR emitters or IR receivers. And what they do is they allow the Zumi to communicate with other Zumis, of course. The LEDs are in fact these micro LEDs that are directly on the board, and I believe these red things are red LEDs. I think that's probably for the back of the Zumi, which will act as the brake lights. Some things are actually labelled on the board. I don't know if you can see that, so it'll tell you what the right and the left motor should plug into. We've got a piezo buzzer here that's actually built into the board, which is nice, and that is labelled too, so curious students will find out a lot the more they look at this board. Then if we go down to the third layer, okay, so what do we have here? We've got, I can see the LCD is in here, and I bet Zumi have labelled, of course they have. So if I bring this a bit closer, you can see that that's been labelled as well. So we know we've got the OLED screen within this. I think I was calling it an LCD screen actually, so we know now it's OLED. Pi camera's ribbon cable, and a jumper wire. Always panic when my GoPro beeps because I worry that it's going to lose connection. I've got a screwdriver. We've got a micro USB cable, I believe. Yep, micro USB cable. I love how well labelled this is. We've got the fasteners, so the screws and bits. Looks like we've got a few mounting pegs as well. And this would be, yep, the Raspberry Pi Zero. So this is going to be a substantial part of Zumi's brain. It's kind of raw processing for the machine learning, I bet. Okay, so that's all of the components that we've got in the box. One thing I do want to do actually, I had this idea before making this video. Oh, I mentioned that the box collapses, didn't I? Now I think the way that works is this blue section of the box can basically be discarded, or is this the only one used? That's it. So I believe this top of the box combines with the blue inner that holds the Zumi car, and what that's going to do is give you a much smaller box to deal with in the classroom. But I will show you that once we've actually built the car. What I want to do with you today is to take the main Zumi board out. Let's just put these to one side, and I'm going to lay it on a bit of paper so we get a nice white background. How's that? What's the more interesting side? Let's go with this side, which has got probably the main components, and I'm gonna annotate this because I was wondering, how am I gonna kind of point to each thing and let you know what is what. If I just open up my camera up on the iPad, and what I'm gonna do is swap over to the iPad. I'm gonna take a nice picture of this board, and then we'll do some live annotations as well. So that's about right. Perfect. Okay, so here we have the photograph I took of the Zumi board. These are what I was referring to as the brake lights. So these are LEDs. So we've got, oh, I don't want to select all. So these are the brake lights and they are LEDs. Now the ones that aren't LEDs are these two here, these two here, these two here. Now the old boards I think only had one of each on this side, but you can see here they've got two. These darker ones, let's see if I can just select two of those, right? So these darker ones will be the IR receivers. Now it's interesting when we consider why the IR receivers have a dark casing and why the IR emitters have a light casing. And that's because there's a lot of IR in daylight anyway. So what we're trying to do with the receiver is to filter out all of the IR that exists in the daylight that's going to be bouncing around and possibly being received. The for the IR emitters, that's not an issue because they're not an input, they're an output. So it doesn't really matter if IR from the surroundings is getting into the emitter LED because its job is to emit IR light. So that's how we can tell those two apart. So we've got the IR receivers. Oh, and can I zoom out again? Thank you. And we've got the IR emitters. Okay, IR receivers, IR emitters. You can see as well, actually, I've missed two pairs of receivers and emitters just here. So we've got another two IR receivers here and another two IR emitters here. So what's that in total? We've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. We've got 6 IR receivers. We've got, well, I imagine, yeah, 6 IR emitters too. So plenty of those things. The motors, we know they plug in here and here because it's really nicely labelled on the board. We've got motor, motor. It even tells you this is M1, this is M2. This should be responsible for the right side of the vehicle. This should be responsible for the left side of the vehicle. So we will call these the motor connections. And then I mentioned earlier the piezo buzzer. That's this thing here, this nice round thing. So that is the piezo electric buzzer. And that will create a single tone, so it will oscillate at a particular frequency and produce just that one note. It's not capable of producing anything, or what's the, I'm trying to think of what we used to call it when we had the old phones, and was it polyphonic? So it's not capable of polyphonic noise, at least as far as I'm aware. But you can program it to create a single tone. Just moving around the board now, you can see a couple of points that you could solder your own connections on there. I think that's quite advanced. I'm not going to dive into that in this introductory video. Just on the underside of the board, now I didn't want to flip the image. Do I want to show you both sides of the board? Yeah, maybe we'll flip it. But here you can just about see the micro USB. We'll see that in more detail in just a moment. And then what else can we see from this side? You can see the power switch there to turn it on and off. So power switch. And here, just next to the power switch, we can see where the lithium ion polymer battery, so Li battery plug-in. Okay, so that's where we're going to connect the lithium polymer battery. And just one more sweep. Are we missing anything? I don't believe we are. Yeah, so that's the one side of the board. Let's flip it over, take another picture, and I'll show you that. Okay, now this is the other side of the board. I've just taken a picture of it. So you can just about make out the brake lights on this side. So this would be the back of the board. You can see the switch here as well poking out. So this will be the front of the vehicle. And what can we see of interest here? I mean, there's a bunch of components that we could talk about, but I think there are only so many that are useful for us right on the offset. So again, there's the micro USB port here. That's the micro USB port. This tiny button here is actually the reset button. So if your board is misbehaving a little bit and you just want to quickly flash that code, stop it from accumulating whatever information it's been accumulating, you can hit that button. We've got two little LEDs here and they are labeled. So the top one is PWR, that stands for power. So if that LED is shining, then we know there's power being sent to the board, and that second one is to know whether or not it's charging. So that's the charge LED. Do we have anything else on this side? You can see up here there's a right and a left LED. So until we build the vehicle, I don't know how useful that is at the front in terms of headlights, if it has any function whilst it's in the car. I can't imagine it not, because they've bothered to put it on the board, but at the same time these LEDs are going to be orientated. If we think of how this is going to sit in the car, these LEDs are either going to be pointing directly downward or directly upward. So I don't know, we'll have to find out how useful these are. Just looking again. Now there is another, so this is kind of coming out of the page. This is sticking up out of the board. You can just about, if I bring it to the camera, you can see it sticking up just here. That is the IR remote receiver. So that's waiting for a signal from a remote control. And is there anything else? We've got another LED here that will tell us if the Zumi is booting. So if it's loading, that should flash if we're putting code onto the Zumi. And then again, we've got a few extra solder connections that we won't go into in this video. I think we've covered just about everything now. Okay, and that's a wrap. That's the first video on the Zumi finished. For the next video, I'll be putting the Zumi together. I'm super excited for that video to be done, because then it means I'll have a working Zumi. And the videos after the next video will be focused mostly on how we can use the Zumi in a variety of educational contexts. So please do join me for the next video. I'm excited to make this thing, and hopefully it's going to go without a hitch. I'm hoping that video is going to be done and uploaded within the next week, ideally within the next 4 or 5 days. So do please keep watching this space. Thank you for staying with me today. It's been a pleasure, and I'll see you in the next video.